Thanks for choosing this Coins Age Media podcast. Before we get going, I would just like to ask, could you please at some point go over and check out the website coinsagemedia.com. It would mean a hell of a lot to me. We're doing a whole load of stuff besides these podcasts. So if you could check it out at some point, coinsagemedia.com. There's vlogs, reviews, and a couple of different other podcasts over there, and a few short films that we've done in the past. So yeah, please feel free to check it out and let me know what you think. Alright, legends, welcome back to the show. We're getting into episode 2 of season 1 of Angel in this episode, and I'm enjoying this a heck of a lot. If you know this show, you'll know that I'm big in the Buffyverse, but when it comes to the Angel spin-off, massive fan of this show, and it's been great just to get in and check it out once more. And this one here, episode 2, is an episode called Lonely Heart. Now, probably not one of the best episodes in the entire run of the series, but it has a lot of good moments in this one, and a good bait and switch as far as the villain goes in this episode. So if you don't want it ruined for you, these podcasts tend to be incredibly spoiler filled. Like, I'll totally destroy the entire series for you throughout this podcast, but I just like to sit down, chat about these shows, and just reminisce on these sorts of shows. And on the Friday nights on the show, we get into some horror movies that we haven't seen before, and some classics that we have seen before. So Lonely Heart, this one here, at the beginning, Angel, he's the usual setup for Angel, particularly in season 1. He's brooding and disconnected from life, and at the beginning he's sitting in the dark. Doyle arrives, and he's your run-of-the-mill Irish character that likes to get out and have a bit of fun. Half demon, by the way, if you don't know this about Doyle. But he's like, it's Friday night, and he suggests that Angel and him and Cordelia should go out and try and break his isolation. But Doyle has his own agenda, and he has got the hots for Cordelia, and he's trying to get Angel to put a good word on for him. And Angel's like, you want to ask her out, just do it yourself. But Doyle's like, if you're talking me up, don't be letting her know about the half demon heritage, because it kind of freaks women out whenever they find out about that part. Angel is just declining to arrange a date between his co-workers when Cordelia arrives with a box of business cards. Angel's like, he's just put a pin on it, don't want to go out, screw that shit. And so Cordelia comes on, and she's printed up business cards for Angel investigations. They've got the business in its early days. It gives you the sense in this opening section of the episode that you don't ever get to see absolutely everything that happens in the lives of these characters. Because Doyle, whenever he's talking to Angel about getting out and blending in with people and getting out there and getting out of his isolation, he's like, it'll break up those nights of madness and mayhem and whatnot. So even in episode 2 of season 1 here, you get the sense that there's a lot more that these characters have gone through between episode 1 and episode 2. So Cordelia passes out these business cards, and she's like, you can leave these with people, and then we can get more business in and whatnot. And she's got the phone number there, and there's a little drawn on a little logo on the card, and Angel guesses that it's a butterfly, while Doyle guesses that the graphic depicts a night hunting owl. But Cordelia punches him in the arm, and says it's an angel. But when she punches him in the arm, he kind of, in her eyes, overreacts because he's falling about and he's in pain and whatnot. But he's having a vision, and he gets a vision of a nightclub. No other details other than a feeling that something's about to happen. The nightclub is the Bleak, the club that Doyle's seen in the vision. There's a young woman named Shara Richtler sitting alone at the bar, unaware she's been observed by a man called Kevin. He approaches her and, they move to a table to get acquainted. Lonely and desperate, Sharon and Kevin soon make a connection and leave the club together. Now, he does say at the beginning, when they're opening up their conversation, he's like, God, I hate places like this, don't you? And that's a line that's going to become very important later on in the episode. As I say, bait and switch time. So once again, we're 6 minutes or so into this podcast. I have warned you, if you don't want these completely destroyed for you, walk away now and watch the episode, and by all means come back and check out the podcast. I would love to have you here. And on the subject of that, please follow the show, rate and review, all that good social media stuff, and let's get back into the review. Angel Investigations team arrives at the bar. Cordelia starts to pass around Angel's business cards until Doyle steps in, cautioning her to stay under the radar. You're going to have to be a wee bit more subtle on how you do this, because it might raise the question, it might label Angel the V word. Cordelia guesses vampire, of course, but Doyle says no, vigilante. And after talking to the bartender, Angel is making no progress. And there's even one point where, when we cut from what's happening with Doyle and Cordelia back to Angel, there's a guy with a disgusted look on his face walking away from Angel, and Angel's like, I'm serious, I wasn't hitting on you. So he's completely out of his comfort zone in this episode. All he wants to do is sit in the dark, brood, worry about what happened with Buffy. And, we know the score from his lead up to the end of season 3 in Buffy and leaving Sunnydale. So he's just, happy enough and content, really, to sit in his own loneliness. But it really plays into that in this episode as well. At the bar, a girl named Kate asks if Angel's alright. This is a new character that pops up in this series. Now, I can't recall how far Kate Lockley lasts within the series. Again, it's been a long time since I watched it. Even though I've got a lot of love and a lot of respect for this series, there are certain aspects of it that I can't recall. I'm just getting old. But yeah, Angel, he's asking the bartender and whatnot, have you seen anything dangerous on here tonight? And the bartender's like, no, the really hot women don't turn up to after 11. But this girl, Kate, gets into the conversation of Angel. Angel, he awkwardly strikes up the conversation as well. Kate, who also seems inept at the social scene, despite a slow start, Angel and Kate find enough in common to make what they both consider to be a true connection at this point. She's sort of, he's, I want to say true connection, they're connecting. I think at this point in the series, there's going to be nobody for Angel but Buffy at this point. But this girl, Kate, has hit him in the soft spot in this episode, and at this point she's more into him than he's into her. And even at one point she awkwardly asks, and then she tries to ask, but then she steps back from the question. I was going to he eventually gets it out of her. She was going to ask, do you want to go to somewhere more quiet? So he had the chance there, didn't take it because he's there on a mission. He has this vision from Doyle, so he's there in a work capacity, let's just say. Across the dance floor, a man starts to come on to Cordelia because of the business card, and he pretty much walks up and he's like, "Is this really your number? Can I call you for a date sometime?" And she's like, "No, this is a business number." And he's like, and he goes to the dark place with it. He's like, "It's how much do you charge? Do you charge by the hour?" So she's getting really upset at this, and of course Doyle is not happy, and he's trying to step in and sort it out, and he even tries to say, "Look, and just leave her alone. The lady's with me." And of course Cordelia being Cordelia, she pipes up, "No, I'm not." At which point a friend of this guy comes up, and it escalates to the point where Doyle headbutts one of them, starts a fight, a barroom brawl essentially starts at this point where Angel gets involved. They get their asses handed to them, and the barman kicks the two of them out. They're known troublemakers, so at the end of the night the place is cleaning out, and Cordelia and Doyle are sitting with Angel, and they're thinking, we couldn't have just been here to break up a bar fight. That can't be what the vision's about. So they leave, and something else that happened interestingly between the character of Angel and Kate after this bar fight. Of course, this girl comes up to Angel and she's all impressed because of the physical fight, and she comes up and starts hitting on him essentially. Of course, Angel being Angel and what he's doing, he starts to try and find out if she isn't any problems. He's here looking for some form of evil, whether it be demon, vampire, whatever. And Kate sees this, and she's kind of let's just say heartbroken at this point. She leaves the bar. So at the end of the night, again, they're like, we couldn't have just been here to break up a fight. But the next morning, after spending the night with Kevin, the man and woman at the beginning of the episode, the two lonely hearts, Kevin's in bed with Sharon. She's about to get dressed, and Kevin wants to hold her, essentially. And that's the last you see him. Like, she's sitting on the edge of the bed. He comes up behind her and puts his arms around her. And we cut from that. And later we see that she's getting dressed, and this guy Kevin is dead on the bed. And so at this point we still have got no clue what's going on. Back at the Angel Investigations office, the team spends the day researching any past incidents connected to the bar, and their search turns up a mutilated woman and a eviscerated man. Now that is a huge word for me at this time of the night, eviscerated. I am impressed that I was able to say that without tripping over it. Fantastic. Both known to have been at the club, Doyle and Cordelia researching demons that cause evisceration and find several suspects. Meanwhile, Angel goes back to the bar to see if he can spot the killer, but on his way in, he bumps into Kate once more. She isn't happy when Angel tries to warn her of some sort of danger in there that she really shouldn't go in. But she's like, "Well, where are you going to go?" And he's like, "I'm going to get into the bar." And Kate's like, "Well, I'll tell you what you can do. I can do whatever I want, and you can go to hell." So they are, Angel's in the bad books with her at this point. So she goes into the bar. Angel comes in along with her, and they sit at either sides of the bar. And Angel talks to the bartender, and another guy turns up to find out if Kevin had shown up tonight. He didn't turn up at work that day. It's not like him, can't get in contact with him. Kevin disappeared after going home with this girl, Sharon. So Angel's here. He hears these two, the barman and this guy, having this conversation. He starts to ask questions about Sharon, and he gets her name, and he checks the phone book. And this is back in the old school days where you didn't have your smartphone in your pocket and you could just pull out Google and just look up something. If somebody wanted to, that's why the detective shows, in my opinion, were better back in those days. You didn't have the big connection with the world that you have now. And Angel runs this late 90s, like it's just on the verge of the internet taking off, really. As far as, having that 24/7 connectivity that we have now. That's another big word for this time of the night. So he runs to the little phone box on the club, public phone, and there's a phone book there, so he's hunting down her name and whatnot, and he tracks her down. But Kate notices this happening, so Angel runs to this girl Sharon's apartment, just in time to see that Sharon is dead, and this guy Neil, I don't think he's even mentioned by name in the episode, but I'm just going by what I'm picking up on the internet here for character names and whatnot, just so I get surnames and whatnot. Right, this guy apparently was called Neil. The darky little kid that Sharon was chatting up in the bar, and Angel just missed her by a few seconds. There was Kate at one side of the bar. This girl Sharon was there with this kid, for this young boy, and when Angel and that works out who Sharon was, they look, she's not there. So phone book check, runs to the apartment. He just gets there in time to see that Sharon's dead on the bed. This guy Neil is putting his shirt back on. He's now hosting a demon. There's a demon busted out of Sharon's chest, went into the back of this guy, and that's what's been happening from the very first part of this episode. Like, she was this, as far as the episode's concerned, she was the first one to be taken over by this demon. Only this borrowing demon, it's like a worm sort of a creature, and it's going from body to body essentially. We find out at this point, Angel sees this thing burrowing into this kid's back, and it turns around, and it's the demon speaking through his body, and he's like, "You're not human." And Angel's like, "Well, you're pretty far off the evolutionary scale yourself." And the demon pretty much tells him, or the host body, he's like, "I already know this isn't the one I can stay with." So he's going to keep killing until he finds a body that he thinks he can stay in. So this is apparently a very, very regular thing. Angel and the demon fight, but it hands his ass to him. Interestingly, and I don't know, I've never noticed this before in the episode, the fight choreography in this episode is absolutely fantastic. And if you look really close at a lot of shows and a lot of movies and whatnot, sometimes you catch a glimpse of the camera crew somewhere in a shot that gets through the edit. I can see how it got through the edit in this episode, because it's such a good stunt. At one point, the demon tosses Angel across the room of this apartment, and Angel slams into the wall on the far side of the room, into the corner, and falls down. But he doesn't just, it's one of these ones where he's thrown, so when he hits the wall, he's actually, his head is about a foot and a half from the ground, and his ass is touching the roof. So it was a big stunt that was going to be very difficult to do, because there was no cushion in there for the stunt person to land on. So it was one of these ones, like, we're going to try and do this in one take, so we don't want to hurt this guy too badly, because that was one of those stunts where you look at it and you think to yourself, stuntman or not, that had the bloody hurt. But when it's happening, and I didn't notice it before, I've watched this episode goodness knows many times, but in saying that, excuse me, I'm still getting over the cold. Yeah, I've seen this a lot of times over the years, but always in VHS. I collected the series originally when it was coming out here in the UK, and it was always a VHS version I was watching it on, so the quality was a little bit lower than what it is now. This time I'm streaming the show off Disney Plus, but this time I actually caught, as I say, it was one of these stunts. It's going to be very hard to do twice, so they had a second camera to catch this stunt from another angle, and as the character, I'm sorry for coughing in your ears, guys. Yeah, as we're doing this stunt, and the stuntman is thrown into the wall, if you look to the right of the screen, you'll see large as life a second cameraman capturing the footage from another angle, but it's quick. And when you're in the fight and you're into the choreography and whatnot and everything that's happening, your eyes are welded to the stunt itself, and it's something that you may not catch. Now, as I say, might have been the VHS quality, but I didn't see it until tonight. So love catching these wee things in movies and TV shows. Anyway, Angel gets his ass kicked by this demon, and it flees. At which point, Kate arrives in the apartment, and Angel's like, "Yo, what are you doing here?" And she pulls a gun on him, a badge. She's actually a policewoman that's been tracking this killer as well, and she tries to arrest Angel, but yeah, when Angel sees that Kate won't be convinced that he's not the killer, of course, circumstantial evidence, she turns up. She doesn't see this guy, the demon's already fled. All she sees is Angel standing in this apartment and a dead girl in the bed, so she pulls a gun, badge out, tries to arrest him, won't listen to anything he's going to say. So he breaks away from her and jumps out of the building and runs away. As he's running off, the demon is sitting just outside the apartment window and he's watching him run off. As dawn approaches, and in all fairness, there's a shot here where Angel's walking down the street towards Cordelia's apartment, and there's enough sunlight out there at that point in that shot where I'm thinking, yeah, he's on the verge of catching flames here. I think they should have. That's probably the one. If I was going to get really twisted in my, every once in a while I'll try a little short film project on my own, so I'm always conscious of what works and what doesn't work. And if you're trying to do things, whenever you've got a character that's a main character that's a vampire walking down the street, you want him to be walking at night time, or at least in enough darkness that he's not going to catch on fire. And the fact that he wasn't catching on fire in this shot was a wee bit questionable in my eyes. But Angel makes his way to Cordelia's apartment, not knowing that Kate has gone to illegally search his place as well. This is all. There's a lot of stuff happens in those last two sentences as Angel's walking down the street to the apartment. There's a lot of stuff cut together. As I say, it gives you the impression at the beginning of this episode you don't see everything that happens in the lives of these characters. You're just jumping in at different intervals in these episodes. And there's a section in here where you see this demon killing and moving to different bodies. So you see at least 2 to 3 different people getting killed by this thing as it moves from body to body. When I say getting killed, what I mean is the host body, whatever the demon slug worm thing, whatever you want to call it, that's the body that dies. When it leaves the previous victim for a new victim, the previous victim's body starts to fall apart straight away. Evisceration, another huge word. So we're seeing all these shots of that happening. Angel going through different bars and different nights trying to track this thing down again. And he does say at one point in the episode, I know I would recognise this thing if I'd just seen it in another body. His vampire senses would pick it up. So while he's doing all that, and this thing is jumping from body to body, Kate is searching Angel's apartment. So when Angel gets to Cordelia's apartment, he wakes Cordelia and Doyle. They have fell asleep while researching on her couch. He asks them to research eviscerating borrowers, demons that move from body to body, endlessly seeking the perfect one to live with forever. They discover the borrower is vulnerable to fire, and Angel decides, right, I'm going to have to call Kate for help on this one. Even though she thinks he's the killer. He's like, and Cordelia is like, is this not the girl we're trying to hide from? The whole point of them being in Cordelia's apartment at this point in the episode is because they can't go back to the offices because they know the police are after Angel at this point. So Angel calls Kate and requests a meeting, asking for 5 minutes to explain himself and prove that he isn't the killer. So he's like, be at the bar at a certain time. And later that night, Kate turns up at the bar. There's no sign of Angel at this point. Kate asks the bartender. She shows him the badge and reveals that she's a policewoman. He turns up. He's kind of like, oh, that's not your usual. But she says, if you see the guy that helped out in the bar fight the other night, of course referring to Angel, will you please let me know? A few minutes later, as she fends off one of these guys that's there trying to get himself a girlfriend. Now, this is where the line at the opening of the episode, when you realise what's happening, the demon said to the first girl, God, I hate places like this, don't you? And while Kate's sitting there waiting on Angel, this guy turns up and he walks up to her and he's like, God, I hate places like this, don't you? So it's a nice little bait and switch there. At this point, you're thinking, right, this is the demon is coming for Kate now. But she's saved by the bell, more or less, at this point, by the bartender. The bartender walks back up and he says, this guy you're looking for, Angel, is out in the alleyway at the back. Now, you're kind of thinking at this point, what's Angel doing out there? But Kit says, show me where he's at. So they leave. The bartender takes her through the back of the club and knocks her out with a blow to the head with a bottle. Angel arrives just in time. The borrower, knowing that time is short here, is now on the bartender. So we didn't actually see that happening. This is a little bit of a reveal here coming up towards the end. He's actually the host now at this point. So he rips Kate's shirt from the back and he's about to move. The demon's about to move from the bartender's body into Kate's body. And just as the head busts out of the chest of the bartender, he gets slapped across the head with a lump of wood, knocked in his ass, and the demon has got no other option at this point but to retreat back into the body of the bartender. Now, the problem here is, for the demon, we found out during the research period that once this thing moves from one body to the other body, the first body decomposes very quickly. So that starts to happen to the bartender, even though the demon is still inside him. So Angel, in that fight again, still incredibly strong. We have found out as well that it has a real dislike to fire. The fight happens, and Angel and Kit both get knocked into the cellar of the club. They're locked in, and there's a nice little comedy moment in here where Angel looks up and he sees a window. It's like about 20 feet up, and he's like, we're going out through that window. And Kit's like, that's far too high for us. There's a little Batman moment where Angel pulls out a little gun, just like Batman, shoots the wire, has the 3 or 4 claws on it, wraps around a beam up above them. Superhero moment, the music balled up and everything. Perfectly done, just like Batman. And then whenever he gives it a yank to see if it's secure, the whole beam rips at the roof. And Kate looks at him like, you're an asshole. And she has another gun. Of course, the policewoman always has a backup. She pulls a gun from her foot, just above her boot, and she blasts the lock off the door, and they run out looking for the bartender. So he's running the club now, trying to, and his body's starting to fall apart, like the skin's starting to strip off his face and everything, and he's trying to sweet talk all the women and whatnot, and everybody's like running from him because he's just grotesque at this point. At one stage he's starting to look like Harvey Two-Face, just half his face is gone, and eventually he grabs hold of a girl on the street and drags her into an alley to try and get her to the bartender's body and the hers, but he's confronted once again by Angel. So they fight once more down this alleyway. There's a few homeless people out in the side street. They've got a barrel with a fire burning on it to keep warm. So you know exactly what's going to happen at this point. And it does. Again, choreography and the fight is fantastic at this part of the episode. The bartender's eventually thrown across the top of the barrel and catches it on fire. So there's another great stunt where he's in flames, still trying to come for Angel, but Angel is rescued by Kate this time, who turns up with the gun, shoots the bartender down, and kills the body. And of course, the fire's going to take out the demon. So at the end of the episode, they have a moment where Angel is like, or Kate's like, I never thanked you for saving my life. And Angel's like, well, you know what? I think saving my life was a good start. So we don't know at this point, or can't recall how it goes between these two characters at this point, because she knows at this stage that Angel's working as a private investigator, but he doesn't actually have a license, so he's working illegally. But what happens in the episode has a bit of respect between the two of them, so she doesn't go after him for that at this point, but I'm pretty sure at one point it does come up. And in fact, I'm sure at one point in the series it does come up again, because the relationship between these two definitely breaks up at one point in a major way. But we'll get to that in due course. So at the end, he's like, if you need any help, just call me. And he pulls out, of course, one of the business cards he has in the pocket, like true businessman style. Here you are, there's my card. And she looks at it, and of course, at the beginning of the episode, Angel and Doyle were having trouble working out what this little logo was. And she's like, what the hell is this? A lobster? So he takes the card off her again. He says, okay, I'll be about. She gets distracted by another police officer, and he takes his moment to pull another Batman stunt and, skulk off into the shadows. And she's left to deal with the clean-up of what happened in the episode. So the nice little ending to this one here is in the Angel Investigations office. They are, Doyle and Cordelia are sitting, Angel's talking to them, and he's like, saying as it's the weekend, we've all been working very hard, and he's very awkward in saying it. I think we should just all go out, for fun. And Cordelia she looks at him like, yeah, right. She's like, or we could go home. And Doyle agrees, goes to leave with Cordelia, and he's like, and you can sit here alone in the dark. And Angel's like, thank you, yes, God, thank you. And they turn the lights off as they go, and he sits back down in his chair, and the episode finishes off pretty much exactly where it opened at as far as Angel's concerned. He's sitting there brooding and thinking things over, and we cut to the credits at the end of the episode. This was a great episode. Again, probably not one of the strongest you'll ever see, but enjoyable nonetheless. And I was really surprised and really happy to see something popping up, even though it was a mistake, seeing a largest life cameraman, second cameraman sitting there to get another angle on the stunt. But these things happen. Countless shows and movies over the years, I've seen that. Probably one of my favourite ones. And this is cutting right away off from the Angel series and right out of the horror genre altogether. If you know Kevin Smith's film Chasing Amy, there's a moment where the two main characters, Ben Affleck and what's her face, the blonde girl was the lead in it. I'm blanking on her real name now. There's a moment where they're having an argument, and it's raining, and she's marching up a street away from him, and he's trying to talk her down, catching up with her. There's a shot where the camera's kind of like dollying up the road next to them as they're walking. There's windows in the background, and it's blatantly obvious if you really look for it. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. You can literally see the camera crew walking up the street beside them. It's class. I love that sort of stuff. So as far as production notes in here, I couldn't come across much. In fact, production details, let's just see. Special effects supervisor Laurie Perster, now definitely did butcher that name, explains that to get the effect of the demon borrowed from through the characters' bodies, Dave Miller built a prosthetic back to identically match the actor. We shot the actor doing his actions with tracking points, little marks on his back, and just soft edged, matted and tracked a locked off version of the actor's back with the borrowed demon and stuck it on in there. Yeah. David Boreanaz, like, I'm probably butchering his name, Boreanaz. You would think I would know how to pronounce that name, liking the show as much as I do. Angel stunt double, let's just say. Mike Massa says the scene in which he is tossed across the room upside down as his favourite stunt of the season. That's the one I was talking about with the extra cameraman in there. To get the effect, he was shot across the room using an air ram. The reason I like it so much is because it really knocked the heck out of me. He says it was 900 pounds of thrust on the air ram. Oh my goodness. I had to hit the corner just right. If I was off, if I hit dead centre of the corner, my shoulders spread, it could have broken my collarbone. As I say, earlier in the episode, this is literally the first time I've looked at these notes of the production. I did say whenever that stunt happened, you like stuntman or not, that had to bloody hurt. So he's saying it himself, if he'd hit it wrong, he was going to break a collarbone. I had to hit it sideways, my back flat to the wall, and kind of skip into it. But it just pile drove me right to the ground. The director, Jim Contner, was jumping up and down, and he thought it was the best stunt he'd ever seen. In that same scene, a cameraman's arm holding the camera can be seen. That's right here in the production notes too. Yeah. That's fantastic. I never would have seen that on the VHS, I'd say, quality drop, but literally noticed it myself tonight. But just there at the end of this podcast, I actually looked up those production notes, opened up Google, looked up the production notes and whatnot just for a bit more detail, and it's actually there. It's common knowledge, but it has to be. When you see it, it's like, how the hell could you miss it? But in saying that, I've missed it for years now. Right, that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast, guys. I hope you did indeed enjoy it. If you did, follow the show, rate and review, share it along, help me get it out there. And I'll be back with you again in a couple of days for another one of the Halloween movies. I think it's Halloween 4 we're going for this time. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all at that stage. That's weird. I'll talk to you all then. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you so much for listening.